Hear Me See Me podcast is sponsored by Zenoti, the #1 cloud software for salons and spas. Because when people feel good, they find their greatness. I am Stuart Roberts, and I'm really excited to introduce my new podcast, Hear Me See Me. It's just over 5 years ago. I did something that changed my life. What it did, more than I could have ever realised, it helped me. I have met some absolutely amazing people. Some of the people that work in some of these places, many of them are volunteers, but some of them it is their job. I had this idea after being inspired by a guy in America I'd seen cutting hair on the streets and seeing the difference it made to the guys who were there. This is more than a job, this is a calling. Hello, this is Stuart from Hear Me See Me podcast, and I've got a guest on today who's very well known in the hairdressing world, and we're also going to chat about a wonderful project he's bringing about at the moment, and we're going to have a chat about, a bit about that at the end, but we're going to start off with, his hairdressing life. Today I'm talking to Luke Hersheson. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. We're a couple of days away from opening, so I'm slightly, for some bizarre reason, got a lot of nervous energy running through me.
Yeah, it's like going over the top in the First World War, isn't it? You're ready,
Yeah.
All quiet, and then it's like that whistle goes, and off we go.
A bunch of hairdressers going over the top.
Yeah. Not like hairdressers to be over the top, is it?
Yeah, all melodramatic.
Yeah.
Or anxious. All the things that's wrong.
A lot of people know about you, Luke, and but for anyone who doesn't know your story and the family you come from and all of that stuff, take me back to when you was young, because I saw on your website that you started at sort of roughly about the age of 4. So you had no choice, did you? You was going to be a hairdresser no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I think I knew that, but I think my dad did like a lot of things to stop me, or not necessarily stop me, but really make sure that's really what I wanted to do. It's funny because I was listening to, I thought we were going to talk about this because I was listening to some of the other podcasts today, and I kind of feel like I was always in awe of my dad. He was like, growing up, he was my best mate. I mean, he still is, he's still my best mate, and we've always had that kind of relationship, which is, I'm really lucky. But he always tells this story, whenever we go anywhere, it's so embarrassing. It's like, I used to take Luke to the salon when he was 4, and he used to ask where this was going and that was going. And then I took my daughter somewhere the other day, and she was going, "Where's that? And where's that going?" And I was like, "Oh my God, she's 3, right?" And I was like, "God, that must have been me." So I just always loved it. I loved the vibe. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the people. And my dad had salons so I grew up in the 80s, which was like an amazing.
Yeah, I remember it.
I think I was kind of an odd child because I wasn't really into like football, and I loved going to the salon, like, really young. It was a bit strange, I suppose. Not strange, but like, I wasn't playing with, toys. I just wanted to go to the salon. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. And he had a salon on King's Road, and it was full of punks. And so I got really exposed to all those kind of like, pop cultures and rods and mockers.
Rods and mockers.
Mods and rockers, and I just saw. And then he had a salon in Sloane Street. It was really like glamorous and chic-y, and so I saw it was very like society and big hair, and and so I just saw a lot, and I loved it, and I always wanted to do it, and he was always just kind of like trying to just put obstacles in my way, because I think he was just trying to test it. Was I doing it just because I wanted to hang out with him and be with him, and I was looking up to him, or did I really want to do it? So I had a few other jobs on the way. I was a milkman for a while.
Oh, was you?
Yeah. And I don't know. I loved it. I could not. You say something on your podcast about it being a calling.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's part of you, isn't it? It's part of.
It's quite unique, isn't it? That's the unique thing about our industry. Until people are in it or around it, they don't quite understand the connections that hairdressers have with their industry, I think. Yeah, it's
part of you. It's not a job. I don't even know if it's a career. It's just part of my being. It's part of my... And I just think we're really lucky. And there are hairdressers that don't feel that way. But I mean, for me, I've always can't imagine myself doing anything else. Like, I just think it's part of us. And I think we're incredibly lucky, because I look at the amount of people that don't know what they want to do or don't enjoy what they're doing. And I think we're just incredibly fortunate to, not feel like work is work. Because I think for a lot of people, for the majority of people, work is, they're working to not work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. So I just always, for me, it was always, I wasn't ever going to do anything else. Yeah. I thought, photography, it was too technical. Design. It's just like, so I don't, probably, I was a Saturday boy from the age of 12, I was washing hair. Did a bit of a course at Hersheson when I was probably 18, 19, like a short course. My dad sent me there because it was the opposite way to how he worked.
Right.
He is a very, I mean, razors, round brushes and everything Hersheson didn't do, he did. So he went, right, you go in there, and they hated me. I was this cocky little shit, who used to get a round brush out, and they used to come running down, and we don't use these here, and I was just a cocky little brat, I think, and I was just trying to,
push the buttons,
and but it was good. It's good to see something else, and he wanted me to see that because it was a really different way of hairdressing to what he did, and which was great. I was really fortunate. But I'd been watching hair all my life, so I had this weird confidence, but technically I was crap when I started. Right. I kind of knew what I wanted people to look like. Yeah. But there were probably quite a few lumps and bumps in there.
Yeah.
I learned a lot on the job, and I don't know. I still think now, like, people go through apprenticeships and they can cut perfect bobs or perfect graduation, but there's the more important thing is to know, like, to vision, like, to be able to envisage what someone wants to be, what someone should look like, and then you can figure out how to do that later. I remember Guido said that to me. He said, I don't think about how to do things. I just think about what I want them to look like. And then I don't care. I'll get anyone in to help me realize that result. Yeah.
It's like, set your goal and work backwards.
Yeah.
It's that I really get that. Because it's, if you begin with the how, you often don't get past that.
Yes.
Why you can't do it.
I think the industry is split in that sense. There's a lot of people that are very, very obsessed about the detail, about the technique, about the how, but not that bothered about the result. And then there's other people that are obsessed with the result, and then will think about the how after.
Yeah.
And I see that with a lot of educators. There's a lot of precision and technique, which is kind of almost overtakes the result. I've always not really been interested in the how, but more interested in the what, in the final look. That's probably why I was technically not very good for at the beginning, but you learn, right?
There was something quite a few years ago. I came across something that was in Asia, and there's this thing of, like, education, particularly with a creative art, of consistency. So it's like, we want that creative flair. We want to be out. We want a look, but we want to make sure that that's repeated time after time. And this I think it was one. Obviously in Asia, it was one of these massive places, colleges, and but they got it that almost like robotic. So they were all like they came in like you could pick one of any like 50 heads that had been cut, and you wouldn't find a different hair.
Yeah,
even, and you thought at that time I was thinking, wow, that consistency is amazing.
Yeah,
and almost there's no soul.
No,
that's becoming an Amazon product,
literally. But it's kind of watch copy, and it's a skill. But you're right, with some, the soul's not there. The feeling and the character, kind of is missing somehow.
I think it was a great move on your dad's part to send you to Sassoons, because I think once you then, it's that whole thing of learning to drive, isn't it? You need to know the rules. You need to learn how. You need to drive until you pass the test. Then you learn how to drive after.
Yeah.
But you've got to have them foundations, them fundamentals, and
yeah. It was I mean, I was just young and cocky, and I just didn't. I didn't have much patience, and I think that kind of part of hairdressing is you've got to be patient. Like you've got to, Yeah, I look at like hairdressers like Christiane, the American, and it's freehand, and it's it's just such a feel, and that's what I still kind of go back to that. Like I'm more in that world even today.
It's the way that I cut hair like that, but I question myself sometimes. Is it because I love the free flowing and the end result, or am I lazy? So I always self-doubt, because I think, are you just being lazy? Are you know what I mean?
It's weird. Because I went on the floor probably when I was about 18, 19.
Right. And
it was, for me, I was so insecure because, first of all, I was the boss's son, right? Which is tough. It's actually not, everyone sat there thinking, it's easy. It's easy for him, right?
Yeah.
But actually, what you've got is, everyone judging you behind you, or you certainly felt like that, I remember I bumped into a stylist once in the salon. I was out in Soho. I was about 19. And this guy said he was off his face, and he just went, "You can't cut a straight line." And it ruined me for years because it was always in your head, and it's that thing of like, because you get indoctrinated, especially when you've been through that kind of education that like everything has to be perfect, right? Yeah. But actually, I mean, the way I cut hair now is so the opposite of that. Like I celebrate imperfections, and I've learned 20 years later the confidence about that. I don't think it is laziness, but I think it's weird, the indoctrination. I think that a lot of education is almost like brainwashing because, once you in that, you can't quite get out of that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that sabotage. It's that sort of, because I know it's how I like to do it. I've been doing it a long time, so I've got the feel of hair, and I know how it grows. I can look at it straight away and know how it's sitting, and so I've got all that confidence. But as you say, it's that self-doubt, that little niggling thing of, like, are you breaking the rules there? Because I was trained the late 70s, but then just coming into, I was speaking to someone the other day about it. I was at the end of setting, but the beginning of cutting.
Okay.
So it was great to have those foundations of setting, and I think you really learned how to manipulate hair.
Yes,
and how it reacted. But then I had my actual boss was a very precise cutter, so he was giving me all this. But I wanted to do all this.
Yeah,
and it was
that's quite an interesting time, really, isn't it? Because
it was a fascinating time, yeah.
Because you probably got the best of both.
Yeah,
whereas in the 80s, it was so much about geometry to some degree, wasn't it? It was like back to those Sassoon shapes again, really.
Yeah, or masses of volume.
Masses of big hair.
Yeah, I mean that we must have been like solely responsible for the hole in the ozone layer. I know I had a salon in Stamford Hope, and I know there was a big hole in the ozone layer above my salon in Stamford Hope, because it was before they took all the CFCs out. And you think, God, I used to, it was like I wouldn't just have one can of hairspray. I'd have like a little group of crack cans on there, in case I run out. It was amazing.
Yeah. God, it was a great time to learn.
Yeah. So you hit the floor at 18. Where did it go after that?
So I was kind of on the floor at 18. I was, and then I really wanted to get into session. So at that time, so that was probably 1999, just 98, 99. Yeah. And I had this niggle in me that salons at that time, they weren't kind of considered cool. They were kind of, they were a bit, I'm trying to find a polite way of saying this. You had kind of people like Sam and Guido, and they were doing these Julian Deese, these amazing session hairdressers, and they were kind of considered, there was a kind of mystery about that world, right? It's not like now when you can sit in a bedroom and just look at backstage at a show, and see what people are doing like that. You couldn't get access to that. So it was a real mystery, and you couldn't get into it unless you were there, right? So I was really fascinated, and I think growing up, I used to see pictures of like Sam McKnight launching his products with all the this picture of him he did with all the supermodels laying on him. It was like amazing. Yeah. I was just standing, in the newsagent, being like, "Oh, that's mega. That's just the coolest thing." And just all those guys that were working with the supers at that time, I was really. And then he had salons, and so there was this disconnect between the two. And for me, I was like, why is it so disconnected? It was, and we were also entering this time of like grunge where like, it wasn't really about haircuts. It wasn't really about hair. It was kind of about making hair look bad, or, like hairdressers hadn't been there. So it was this weird moment, and salons, I felt a bit, I'm trying to use the words that aren't like derogatory, but there was just this, they just weren't kind of looked up to in the media, I suppose. I remember seeing Sam McKnight on Ab Fab, or there was the clothes show at the time, and you'd never kind of get salon people involved. And for my dad, that was really weird, because when he started, there was no session industry. So people would phone the salon up and say, "Oh, can you come and do a shoot for Vogue?" It was one industry, and then it split. When I came in, you just had these two industries, and salons were all a bit out of flavor, and so my mission was like, we've got to make the salon cool again. I know that sounds really knobby, but like, no, but it was like, come on. But you just kind of get it, what's the word, like looked up to again, like from a media point of view, like, I felt like my dad was a great hairdresser, and he was always looking forward to like new trends and new haircuts, and it wasn't kind of naff and mumsy, and I was like, why is that not being seen? So to me, I thought the best way I could do is, well, I can stay in the salon and do session. No one was doing that at the time. No. It was like really unusual. Now it's normal, right? Now everyone does a bit of everything. Yeah. But at the time, so I set on a mission. I was like, I'm going to make my name for myself, and also it will help me, because people won't just think, "Oh, I'm a busy salon hairdresser, son of a hairdresser." I had to make my own name. So I tried, really hard to get out there, and met model agents, and started testing and shooting and just building a portfolio, and eventually, after kind of, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I had this client in my chair. Her name was Kim. She turned out, I didn't know who she was, but she turned out to be one of the biggest photography agents in London. She represented loads of amazing photographers, and she said, phoned me up one day, and she said, "Oh, can you go to Sardinia tomorrow?" This was 2001. It was just after 9/11. Oh, wow. I was like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, "Well, Guido was meant to do this job, but he can't get back from New York. Everything was locked down after 9/11. And it was an ad for Missoni with Giselle, and that was like my break into session, and that was amazing. But it was, I was so nervous. It was like it was
been absolutely. You must really have been going through it. I'm thinking of The Journey Over.
It was like, but it was a break. It was like my first job at that kind of level of like, you know, fashion and and I had a really good career in session. I managed to balance the two, you know, salon and session, and everyone said you can't do that, you have to pick one, and I said no, you know, I don't want to pick one. To me, like, I still love cutting hair in the salon. It's really important I'm there. My career was always going to be about all of it. I didn't want to just do one thing. So I just juggled. And I still juggle today. I probably do a little bit less than I do now, but I think that whole session world's changing a lot, massively. You know, it has been changing over the past few years.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I can't remember the question now, but I think that's kind of how I started. And, you know, my mission was to try and just, you know, make our salon brand kind of cool and relevant and noticed, I suppose. Because there were times where salons were really like, they were really relevant. They were really, you know, if you look back to kind of 70s and 80s, and the 90s was this weird moment, I think, for salons.
Yeah.
You know, you had Nicky Clark that was basically kind of, he was like this massive celebrity hairdresser, but it was a very different thing. It wasn't so kind of fashion related, and I wanted to kind of bring that.
I understand what you mean. It was that thing of it wasn't high fashion, was it? It was almost like it was high commercial.
Yes, it was like a lot of morning TV and a lot of makeovers, and which was great. You know, and there's a lot of those guys that became huge names, that built massive product companies, did really, really well. Yeah. But that kind of innovation or kind of that link to fashion wasn't there, and that's what was missing for me at that point. And that's where I thought we could be different. So we actually decided there were a lot of things we decided we're not going to do. So we weren't going to do hair awards. We weren't going to do morning TV. We just said, let's not do all those things, because actually we could probably get noticed more from the stuff we weren't doing than from the stuff we were doing, if that makes sense.
That's a very brave decision.
Well, it was a cheaper decision as well, because the hair awards cost a fortune.
I remember because it was the late 80s, or I opened my salon in 88. And then, so around that time in the early 90s, L'Oreal were doing this thing where you could go up to the centre and they'd have a day with. Very early on, it was a day with Charles Worthington, at the time Alan Peters.
Yeah.
That day, as a young salon owner, like, it really hit me, you know, between the eyes of like my whole direction. I am a bit too spontaneous. I did come back. I've driven my sister mad over the years. I sort of came back, and the next day I said, right, we're doubling our prices, which isn't really the thing you do. You do gradually increase the service and do it like that. But I went, no, I've seen what we're going to be. We're going to be Charles Worthington in Essex, and we're going to do this, and we're going to get little trays for our coffee. We're going to do all of this stuff, you know. But I remember him saying that he got a call for Vogue, and Alan saying, you can't do it. And they had a big sort of thing over it, but Alan said, no, we're building a business. We can't have you out the salon and not get paid for the day.
That's interesting.
And I still remember that now, and I'm thinking, what a brave thing to do. But that's the thing of the artist and having a business partner.
See, we were the opposite. We tried to build. I always kind of looked at like Bumble and Bumble in New York. They were like, at the time, like, that's all I looked up to. And I looked up to John Frieda as well. And I said, I kind of feel like we're somewhere in between the two, or we should be somewhere in between the two. Yeah. We're kind of highbrow like John Frieda, but we're cool and relevant like Bumble, right? And that was always kind of where I was trying to get to. And so we tried to kind of curate like as many session hairdressers that were coming and going as possible. So in a way, like the opposite of, you know, we had people like Rudy Lewis and Lindell Mansfield, and, you know, they were people I'd met, you know, we were all assistants at the same time, you know, and there were a few of us out there doing bits and pieces, and it just helped the whole vibe. So I suppose it's everyone did it different ways, right? Everyone was
you had a very clear vision, didn't you?
No, I think we definitely did. We really knew what we were trying to do, and I think the business, it's weird because I feel like I look back now, it's 20 years. Like I started 20 years ago, and I still feel like I'm the new guy. I mean, I'm not, but and I look at the younger generation coming through now, and I'm definitely not the new guy. But like, I don't feel like the old guard. It's weird. It's I think we've still got a long way to go, a lot to do. There's still a lot of work to do. I mean, one of the things I think is just how we're perceived out there, hairdressers.
Yeah.
I think like as I'm getting a bit older, I'm starting to look at things like that as like how the perception of hairdressing is still not what it should be. In fact, I was working with a makeup artist called Lisa Eldridge a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And she's just done this. She's done this TV program, comes out next Tuesday. I didn't mean for this to be a plug, and I actually can't remember the name of it, but it comes out next Tuesday on BBC Two, and it's about the history of makeup. And she did all this. She's gone back to kind of the 1700s, the 1800s. It's like really amazing. And she said, then if you were a hairdresser, you were one of the most respected industries, right?
Yeah.
They were, and I just kind of think, what happened?
Yeah.
It's bonk. I'm actually going to phone her and talk to her about it because I think there's maybe some learning. It was really, really, really respected.
Yeah, I think. There was a time when you had to pay to be an apprentice.
Yeah.
There was a time when it was very difficult to get into, and then as time goes on, it became easier and easier. Do you think in your career have you seen it like the perception change for better, for worse? When I started was 1978. Now there weren't many men doing it. Like I got stick.
I got stick for just being the son of a hairdresser.
Well, I got stick off my dad. He was ashamed. He was like, I said to him, like, he was a real man's man, and I said to him, I'm going to be a hairdresser, Dad. And he went, oh, what am I going to tell the blokes at work? And he went, then I've said this many times, he spent about 3 years calling me a barber, Dad and all that. But the thing at the time was, any perception of hairdressers on TV or the media were the because I'm going back to the late 70s, but it was the mincing, Gervais the hairdresser and all these things, and it then got a point where it did the clothes show like that. It became really cool to be a hairdresser. There was that resurgence. I tell you, one of my heroes was Simon Forbes' Antenna.
Yeah.
Like that time, like it became so cool to be a hairdresser again.
Mm.
But I feel where we've really then relapsed is the Groupon culture. Mm-hmm. When we were in trouble on the high street, we all jumped. I didn't personally, but the industry jumped on the Groupon culture,
on the discount culture,
the discount Groupon culture that ravaged our esteem because. We turned a valued service into a commodity.
Yeah.
And your special relationship with your customers, like in my little area, my coffees on the trains, once they started doing the Groupon culture, said, Stu, right, I'm having a cut and colour, but they've got colour. I've got a Groupon on the colour down there. When they realised that some of the other places, they've got nice little trays or they've got a Kit Kat and, they do a head massage and it all became the mystery left because it all became, let's shop, I go from there to there to there. Transient clients. So the most loyal clients are transient clients, and then there's on top of that, there's that thing of not respecting your own time. You know, like putting a value on your own time. So by discounting, you're saying
it's become its own worst enemy in a way.
Yeah. Sorry, I went into one there. But
no. I think you're 1,000% right, because I think it's like a vicious circle. It's like, in fact, one of our team, I saw the other day, she put something out on Instagram. She said, she was asking her clients, you know, what do you expect to pay if I come to your house as opposed to you come to a salon?
Yeah.
And she got all these answers back saying, you know, less, you know, if you come to a salon. She's, why, you know? And people said, well, you know, I don't think it's going to be as good, and And it's really interesting, the values that people place on a haircut. And it's bizarre because actually, through lockdown, you've seen it's one of the things that people have missed the most, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, I kind of think that when we're insecure or nervous as hairdressers, it's the easiest thing to do is to kind of discount ourselves or devalue ourselves, put a lower price on it. Much harder. It takes much more confidence to put your prices up. You know, the amount of chats I've had with hairdressers, us over the years, saying, you know, go on, do it. You can do it. You're great. You're worth it. You know. And they, I don't know, you know, and like, no, go for it. And then 6 months later, they've gone, God, that really was worth it. Like, you know, it's really about confidence, isn't it? You know, lifting people's confidence and realizing, like, showing them what they're worth. But the more, as you're right, the more we discount, the more devalued the industry becomes.
Yeah. And if you equate it, I'm not taking away from car mechanics, but if you equate it, you know, like an hourly rate.
Totally.
The hourly rate you'll pay if you stick your Ford into a Ford garage, the hourly rate they charge you for some kid who's just come out of their, you know, training or still in their training to service your car is astronomical compared to, you know. So you must. That's why I've always liked the tier system. Some people don't. I like the tier system because it's relevant to experience.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. But I think we've got a lot of work to do. I think the industry's got a lot of work to do to change the perception of how we're seen. I think there's still such an incredible industry, and it's so rewarding, and I think in a way maybe the lockdowns have helped people see us in a different way. You know, there's been a newfound respect.
Yeah, I think it's the absence makes the heart grow fonder, and they've grown very fond of us. But people are fickle because we saw that in the first lockdown. Because I'm only, you know, I love to be positive, but sometimes I have to be realistic. And I really thought they're going to really appreciate us after this, that first 3 or 4 months. And then I started to see, because I watch a lot online. I watch a lot of the Facebook groups and all of the things to see the general view of things. And then I started to see, not sure about charging a bit extra for PPE, and I'm not sure about this. People are complaining for the extra £2. You know, and you can't help but think, well, that was short-lived, wasn't it? It was like, I can't wait to get back to my hairdresser. I've got to pay an extra couple of quid, you know. And hairdressing salons suffered because you was having to separate, space out time, you know, 40% less turnover on the site, you know, and people would complain about a couple of quid surcharge, or, you know, and you I think, and there's another aspect to it as well, where sometimes hairdressers, I mean, I love the industry, I love hairdressers, but we can shoot ourselves in the foot. Whereas, you know, by what we do on social media, that's a great, like, Achilles heel, I think, of ours, is because I want to be taken seriously, I want to be professional. And some of the stuff that people put out,
like what?
Well, you know, like it's not professional because it's really bad. I mean, I've got a potty mouth, but it's really bad language. It's really, you know, and it's all this stuff that's almost like, well, we're cool, but we've got to be professional. You know, it's that balance again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Totally. Yeah. I think stuff like Groupon's probably, you know, people get salons need the traffic, you know, stuff like that. It's a vicious circle. So
yeah,
I don't know.
As a positive though, things like the British Beauty Council are doing so much great work for us. You know, to get recognised now, you know, as the care sector.
Yeah.
That all of that stuff is then, because it's always been quite a bit fractured. All the different bodies is coming together and then pushing it out has got to really lift the profile.
Yeah, I think so. And I was quite involved in a campaign called Save Our Salons over lockdown as well, which was trying to help get this VAT reduction.
Oh God, yeah.
That hospitality got given and hairdressing didn't, and we didn't nail it. But I do think there's going to be a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I think that was one of the great things. It's like I started talking and meeting people that I would never have done normally. You know, other hairdressers, like even organisations like the NHBF. Like, never had anything to do with them. I met the guy that runs that, a couple of people there, you know, Millie at the Beauty Council. I thought that was quite, you're right. I mean, that was quite impressive. It really did bring people together. And I hope that stays.
Yes.
I hope that stays, you know, more together, because there are still, I think, a lot of politics going on. And, you know, those organisations there's not enough hairdressers, I think, on them. Salon owners and hairdressers on them. I think there still needs to be more representation, you know, by all of us that are paying the bills and, you know, paying the staff. But you know, I think we've taken massive steps forward. It's really good.
I think that it's got to be kept up, this campaign for the VAT, because I've felt it's happened for quite a long time before the pandemic. Because it basically it's a service industry. You're claiming such little back. It's almost like a 20% tax on your turnover, and then
it completely is. And I think you compare that to restaurants, and you know, they're selling really goods, and so for all the stuff they're buying and they're claiming it back, their claim back is so much higher than our claim back, because what can we claim back? Shampoos and colours, and really that's it. But I think the industry is pretty, you know, it's not an even. I learned a lot of this through lockdown and Save Our Salons stuff, but this kind of even playing field is difficult. It's almost like incentivized not to be VAT registered.
Yes. Which
I don't really think is good for anyone, really.
No. If they made the model work better, because I know, because I had a salon for so long, for 30 years I had a salon, and it was almost a model where you couldn't. The more you got penalised.
Yeah.
So I can sort of get. I don't agree with it, but I sort of get why they just think, oh no, look, I'm not. There's no point. I've even known people like just I've come because I've got lots of different volunteers across the board with our charity. I meet people throughout the whole of the industry. It's been fascinating, and some of them with a very small business, the VAT say to them, look, if you do a little bit more, you can actually, like, you can make you a VAT registered, and you can, and they choose actually to do a day less.
I know. That's the bizarre thing, is that you the minute you hit £86,000 a year, you have to hit 100, and I think it's 110, just to be making the same amount of money.
Yeah.
It completely doesn't make sense.
No, and I've heard people say, well, I just do 4 days a week and earn the same money. It's not good. It's not, but that's no good for anyone, because there's no expansion, there's no growth, there's no education, there's no. It's a crazy thing.
Ireland's done a really good thing. Ireland chopped their VAT. I think it was back in 2013 or 2014. They chopped it to 9%.
Yeah,
and I can't remember the exact stats, but something like 5 times the amount of apprentices after that. That the industry started growing, and we had we put all that stuff too, because we had some meetings with like Treasury and some civil servants there, and we put all of that to them, and they were like, "Oh, give us as much information on the island stuff as you've got." I do think eventually we'll get somewhere.
Yes,
I think I don't think it's going to be quick.
No, I think it's worth going after that. I think it's worth being diligent and to carry on with it, because I think it'll be a game changer for the smaller. It'll be obviously for the big guys as well, but there'll be some people. It will save salons. It will save salons, which then save families, which save all sorts of things. And the salons bring a lot around to the high street as well. I remember that it's all the dual business you get from a salon being in.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you can't digitalize a haircut. You can never get a haircut on Amazon. It's just never going to happen. No. And actually, that's our strong point. Experiences, restaurants, bars, hairdressers. We've got so much. I think we've almost got so much power now that we're the things that are going to keep the high streets going. Yes, because a lot of the clothes shops and a lot of those things all can quite easily move online, and we can't. So we really will become like community hubs. I think the things that bringing people together. So
what? Going back to like the beginning of last year, how did it affect like your business, your teams when we hit into lockdown?
Oh God, it was horrific, wasn't it? So I remember last March, it was really weird. We had this meeting, I think probably 2 or 3 weeks before we lockdown. We tried to do we try and have like a kind of like a management brainstorming thing like twice a year, right? And this was like the second one we'd done. We were like, we're getting really organized, we're going to use a brainstorming session, right? And there was only like 6 or 7 of us, and it was the second one we'd done, and someone said, right, so this virus thing, like, it's not going to be anything, it's all just going to, what's the point talking about it, right? How wrong were we? Like, how wrong. And everyone was trying. It was weird. Like, everyone was trying to plan for this, plan for that. I'm like, what's the point in planning? If we're going to get shut, we're going to get shut. And then there was this panic over a few weeks of like the things you had to start doing, and I can't even remember now. It was just, do you remember? It was like, oh, should we have anti-bac, or should we have? It's so weird to think back on it. But I remember when we shut, it was like we'd written to all the staff saying, listen, we can only pay you. I think it was 20%. Or something of yours. So this is before furlough got announced. Like this is all we can do, for the next. And we thought it was going to be a month or so, right? The first lockdown, and then literally we sent that letter out, and then day after furlough got announced,
right?
Which was like, I remember looking at the TV going, oh, thank. Because that was the lifeline to keep everyone or most of our guys going, and without that. I don't think there'd be a salon industry. I don't think there'd be a lot of industries that all would have gone. But I spent the first, I don't know, 6 weeks just working with the accounts and our finance controller, and just looking at, it was just, how do we get from here to here and survive? I mean, I've got to say, like, I literally bow down to any business owner, right, that has still got a business after being shut for 8 months out of a year. It is, and God, like, yes, I know it's sad that there are salons that have failed and won't come back, but there are also a lot that will come back. And I think that is just, that's amazing. I think everyone should just pat themselves on the back. Yes, we all have got a lot more debt. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, it's going to be tough, but like just to survive it, I think is, it's incredible. Because, the tap turned off, right? Came back on for 12 weeks and went back off again. Yeah. I mean, it's when you think about the insanity of it, and then you go, well, I've still got a business. That's unbelievable. Yeah. Isn't it?
It's incredible for people's, the tenacity of the hairdresser. Yeah, never. Yeah, and then, you know, we're saying about how it's perceived. Well, look at it as a strong, survivable structure. You know, like
absolutely. And Catherine from Creative Head, she did this really good report, and something like 80% of salon owners are females under the age of, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you know, like a lot of women salon owners. It's amazing. Like when you look at like who these people are that make up our industry, make up salons. I just think, April the 12th? We're opening a few days time. You know, just to get to that point to reopen, I think everyone that reopens should just be so proud of themselves. I really, really, really think that. I think it's just, and it has not been easy. You know, every salon owner that comes out of this on April 12th will have an enormous amount of debt that they didn't have going in, but they've survived. Yeah, and they should really feel proud. I really, really think that. I think it's like a massive, you know. If you said to someone like, right, you're going to be shut for 8 months, I don't think anyone would think. And I know we've had help. I know there's been furlough and there's not been enough help, and there's been people fall through the cracks and all the rest of it. Yeah. But I do think that, you know, the industry should feel proud of itself.
I thoroughly agree, and leads me perfectly to who else we should be proud of is our wonderful NHS.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me about your campaign.
So it was one of these things that you get, when you're because lockdown's given everyone a chance to think, reflect more. I don't mean, I know everyone's saying, I'm grateful and reflecting, but we did. I mean, we did have you did have moments where you started to think about things. You get clarity, right, from not being so like rushing around like a blue ass fly and I put this thing on Instagram just a few months ago, just saying I really think that it'd be nice to offer the nurses like a free haircut, free blow dry. I don't think I'd rounded off the idea properly at that point, and I just put it out to see what people would say, and we got loads of responses back because I think there were a lot of people doing discounts, which was great, and but discounts still. It's not free, right? It's not a genuine, it's not a gift, is it? It's a discount. And I thought, to really truly do something like big is to really give some of our time up, right? And so we came up with this idea called Hair for Heroes, which was about, the NHS has looked after every single one of us through this entire year. Whether you've had COVID or you haven't, they've still looked after us, right? Yeah. Directly or indirectly. And now, as hairdressers, we know the power we have to make people feel better by looking better. I mean, I'm just telling you what you preach every day, right? I don't need to tell you that. And so what we said was, okay, as a salon, we're going to pledge 1 hour of each of our team's time a week, right? That's something like 60 haircuts or something. And we're going to try and get as many salons up and down the country to join in to make it kind of like a national campaign and just run it for 6 months, right? So April till September. And, people can pledge more, they can pledge less, completely up to them. But I just wanted to me, the main thing was just give a haircut. Don't give half haircut. So don't give 50%, give a haircut. And just giving that one haircut means so much more than giving kind of 50%, because it's really coming from the heart, right? And it is genuinely you giving up your time, and it's an hour. Like, we've all got an hour. Do you know what I mean? And so I think we're up to something like 30 salons, and I think that everyone's really like focused on just getting open at the moment, and we've got lots of people I think going to be joining in May. so I think, I'd really love to see it get to kind of 100, 150 salons over the next couple of months. But we've had a really nice response so far, and hopefully it will grow. So salon owners, how do they
log
on to Hair for Heroes? It's hair4heroes.co.uk. There's a little sign up form. Just put your name, your address, where your salon is, roughly how many hours a week you want to donate, and that's just for us to be able to kind of calculate how many we're being, as an organisation, how many we're giving. We're not publicising that. And then we'll put your details on the website, and then we're doing a big PR push to get nurses to come to the website and book. And so they book via you. So we just put your details up, and then they book via you. So if you want them to book by email or book by phone, it's completely up to you. You decide how they book. And then we ask them to bring some ID, to show they're an NHS nurse at their appointment. But you control the whole booking thing. So you can do as much or as little as you want as a salon or as a hairdresser.
I think it's great. I think it's the least people can do, and I try and stay apolitical, but I can never help myself for the absolute shitty pay rise they just got. I know. And I find it often is the way. It's a lot above my pay grade, so but it just often ends up being people helping people. Let's not wait for the right thing to be done. Let's just sort it out amongst ourselves and get it going. And I think it is a great thank you. And there's that something, like you say, you can give 80% discount, but there's still that little bit of money changing hands. And because I found it the first time I ever done what I do. Because as soon as you take all money away, it's a totally different ball game. And it's really important that it's a completely free gift.
Yeah, and I think just to turn it back to kind of what you say, because I think it's so powerful what you say about when you started, it did something that you totally didn't expect. It helped you, and I think that for anyone that's doubting, listening to this, or thinking, I'm not going to sign up, or I might sign up, or whatever. Actually, I think this idea of charity, it does actually come back full circle, and it does help you. And that could be in the form of, you might listen and hear something that makes you feel grateful. It might be the fact that nurse becomes a client of yours for life. It might be anything. It might be anything, right? But if you don't want to do it for them, do it for you. Right?
Just feel better. This is what does all the time. People often say to me, you're such a nice bloke. Really not. And also, I get so much from it. I know because of how much I've missed it. I'm counting the days. Wednesday morning, early, I'll be at Whitechapel Mission, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see them.
When was the last time you did it?
Just before Christmas, because we just couldn't.
We couldn't do
it. I tried a few different ways of doing it. I was conflicted as well, because I thought sort of like my loyalty to the industry was that if everyone can't be doing it, I helped in other ways. I delivered a van full of soap. I've got quite a lot of team leaders who helped at food banks. We did something, but we thought we've got to keep the tools down.
Yeah.
Sort of solidarity with the industry, But we're back. We're reopening about 15 in the first 2 weeks. So amazing. we've got a long way to go. But it's like the salons, like haircuts for homeless, like the salons, Hair for Heroes. The rest of this year, what we're doing, we're restocking, rebuilding, re-supporting our existing stuff, and then we'll move forward. Yeah, and I'm sure, please God, like next year, we can really start pushing again.
Yeah, absolutely, for all of us, right?
yeah. Well, look, it's been amazing. I really enjoyed our chat. I'm sorry I went off on one a couple of times, but brought up a couple of things that are really, really important to me. Absolutely. But it's been really good. So what I'll do, I'll get all of this out, and I will we'll put the details, the links, and everything
Cool.
And I encourage all salons to get on board with this.
Thank you.
A great idea, a great movement, and
it's 6 months, so it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, but I want you to come and join me at one day.
Come in.
You're going to come. You can't get out of it now. All right. Cheers, pal. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Just over 5 years ago, I did something that changed my life. What it did, more than I could have ever realised, it helped me. I have met some absolutely amazing people. Some of the people that work in some of these places, many of them are volunteers, but some of them, it is their job. This is more than a job. This is a calling.